You don't even know me. You don't even know my name. You don't even know me. Why you saying shit? You don't even know me. Why you playing games?
Masterful filmmaking requires masterful filmmakers. And I am sitting next to somebody who is what we call a master visual effects creator and founder of Crafty Apes. And Chris, how did you go from an Alaskan-born graduate of psychology to being probably one of the greatest, most successful visual artists in the world today?
Well, when you get a psychology degree, you better be very good at making French fries, and I'm not very good at making fries. So I always wanted to work in the film industry because, growing up in Alaska, we spent a lot of time in the video store as a kid. There wasn't a lot else to do, either go kill an animal or watch videos.
Okay, so you watch videos. Yeah. And you are one of the masterminds behind the visual effects of La La Land, 12 Years a Slave. Actually, the list is so long I can't even say it here. So let's start with La La Land and explain to us what is the difference between you as a visual effects creator to a special effects creator.
So special effects are the teams that do everything practically. So when you're on set and they're blowing fog, or they have a flame bar to build fire, or they have fans, wind machines, and things like that, that's all practical, real world things. Visual effects tends to be things that happen more inside of the computer. So things we digitally alter in post-production. And so we're on set, we're helping them shoot things correctly, et cetera, but visual effects really has to do with the post process.
So let's look at La La Land. There's that remarkable opening scene with the dancing on the cars. How did you play a role in that?
So it was 110 degrees. We were on top of that overpass freeway in LA. We shut down that overpass, and there was no escaping the sun. There was no shade. There was hundreds of people and cars, and we were shooting on film. So film only lasts, when you shoot film, your canisters only last a few minutes at a time. You only have a few hundred feet per canister. So that shot, though, takes very many minutes on camera. And so the choreography of it had to be planned out, and we actually were stitching everything together to look like one big shot. We were adding additional extras. We were extending the cars into the distance. We were changing the background of LA a little bit. There, sky replacements. So the whole thing had to feel like a big, seamless, planned out shot, very invisible. And so we had to actually do that because that would have been essentially impossible to shoot practically.
And other movies and other iconic moments where we can look back and say you as a visual effects creator or Crafty Apes as a visual effects company played such a role in that?
Yeah, we were in charge of, me and Tim LeDoux, my brother, were the visual effects supervisors on the movie. So we were there from the beginning planning it. And there was a lot of other stuff, the big thing in the Getty Museum where they fly into space and dance. Like there's hundreds of shots in the movie. And something like the Getty Museum is very obvious, but the opening scene is not as obvious. And there were a lot of tweaks we had to do because as you shoot, things inevitably go wrong. I've never been on a perfect shoot where it's like, wow, everything just went according to plan. That's never happened. And so as things, wrinkles appear and the sun's over here, now it's over here, and oh, we just shot this and there's 300, support and grip trucks in the background, let's paint those out. We allow the filmmakers to really open up their imagination and we can polish and perfect it. So you don't have to, if you would have done that shot in the 1960s, it wouldn't have existed really. And you'd have ended up with a lot of these things there. And so we're able to really polish it, take it to this next level, and it's truly invisible. No one knows there's visual effects there, if you do it right. If we really do our job properly in those sort of scenarios, no one ever knows we were there.
So taking a movie like 12 Years a Slave, what role did you play in that?
That one we were not on set for. We came in as a, fourth quarter, last second, like, hey, we have all these shots to finish. We have this really big shot, but similar, there's a giant shot at the end. It's a very emotionally powerful shot with Michael Fassbender and in the cast, and he's freaking out. He's having a very emotional moment. He's attacking her. And there's this whipping and all these things going on. That was actually shot over the course of a few days and different takes. And we actually stitched them all together to make it look like one seamless motion, which the director felt very, he had a lot of conviction and a vision that it had to be this. And he had been told multiple times that it couldn't be done, it was impossible. And we got a call from someone in post who knew that we kind of are digital hackers, so to speak. And me and my brother were able to come up with a method to actually make this happen. And so the director was very thrilled, and they ended up giving us a lot more work on it throughout the film to, spruce up and polish a number of things. So that one was really powerful because it's such an emotional climax of the scene. and we were able to contribute to it and get the director's vision on there as he originally intended.
And what's interesting is you have offices in LA and New York, and right now we're in Atlanta, where you have a huge office. And I've been to the secret room, the room we're not allowed to film in, where all the artists are. So just, walk us through who's in that room. I know we talk about composite artists, and when we're watching a film, what do we look for?
It depends on the type of film you're watching, So if there's obvious visual effects and there's invisible visual effects. So if we take a dragon in Game of Thrones, for example. Well, we know that dragons don't technically exist, so I don't think they exist. So it's when you have things like that are obvious visual effects. The audience, something happens in your subconscious where you say, oh, well, they couldn't have shot this. So I'm going to start looking for ways to pick this apart. And I'm going to start saying, okay, does this look real or not? And so you see this, take The Hobbit, or, we know that most of that can't be shot, and so something flips in your brain. So the other side of it is invisible visual effects. So if you're watching a character-driven film, with, say, La La Land, which you don't think of as a visual, besides the whole imagination, Griffith Observatory scene, there's visual effects throughout the whole movie, but you don't know it. So we're changing, especially with period pieces. Like we just did Dolomite, which came out on Netflix, which is a period piece, but we shot in LA, last year. So you're doing all these, you have to think about when you're watching it, what could be here from a production standpoint. Now, there's certain things that are invisible, but if you're in the business, you know that if we're shooting a stadium scene, that there's no way to corral 60,000 extras. It's definitely visual effects for that scene. There's no way you can't even get 500 extras to show up properly and then move them around and then have them fight over phone chargers and stuff like that. So you can't, that's the stuff you should look for, is like, imagine if I were shooting this. Would I have these two characters in a car on green screen? Would I actually practically drive them down the road? When you're in production, you're like, well, how'd they get down this road? You would have had to hire police to block off 3 miles. It would have cost $50,000. And you're like, oh yeah.
I'm never looking at a movie the same again after this conversation, and I don't think you will either. Chris, one question is, you said this wouldn't have happened in the 1960s. With digitization, with technology, how is your world changing? How is filmmaking changing?
Well, I think in a lot of ways, visual effects has ballooned up. So if you go back to Jurassic Park 1993, which people still consider this giant visual effects movie, there were only, I believe, 33 shots in there for visual effects. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of animatronics, and and by the way, it's incredible work. It still holds up. It's one of the best things ever. But that's only 33 shots. Now you might do a mid-budget comedy, and there's 300 shots in there.
Okay, give us an example of a mid-budget comedy that you've worked on or are working on.
You take, where am I on the spot?
No, that's fine. But even let's say right now we've got J-Lo is in a movie. Yeah, it's not a mid-level comedy, but she's in, is it called Hustlers? Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's walk us through that one, because that's on the circuit right now.
That's, I can't really talk about what we did on that.
I know he was very involved, and there's some very, very good pole dancing in that one.
There's a lot of 2D work in there. There's we're an insurance policy in a lot of ways.
What is it called? 2D work?
2D work, composite work.
Oh, composite work.
Yeah, there's a lot of just,
2D as in number 2 and then D.
Yeah, 2.
You are educating 2D. Us, yes.
There's
I thought you meant 2T, like something to do with the strippers. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
For dancers.
Okay.
In terms of like that kind of work, so what you're looking for is, you're a filmmaker, right? Back in the day, you would have probably on average 70 to 100 days to make a movie. Well, that average has gone down. You're seeing movies being made in 20 days, 30 days. Well, it's not like the crew moves any faster. It's not like there's, it's the same stuff. So inevitably more mistakes happen. So we're an insurance policy in a lot of ways. And a common thing we do is a split. So me and you're having this conversation, right. Someone's filming it. Well, back in the day, this is the take you get. Nowadays, we do things where there's a certain take from you on one take, and there's a take from me another take, and the editor prefers it. So we'll split it and take pieces from different takes, move them around, and then splice a whole new thing together. That's a great example of now what's possible, which wasn't possible. So going from, the shot count is going up, where even, the smallest movies now will be like, oh, I don't like that sign back there. And directors come to us all the time and they'll be like, I didn't like the sky this day. Can you change the skies out? And we're like, Sure, but
right.
that wouldn't have been thought of before. It wouldn't even been like a thing, to think like, oh, I can change the skies.
So the positive thing is this is such an aid for filmmakers, but then what happens in terms of the visual effects advancement is we can fabricate anything. Like right now, you could be talking to Barbara Walters.
No, yeah, the deep fakes are something we've done research into that are pretty fascinating. Really, it's like you can't we're at that point now where when you watch something, you can't be totally sure how authentic it is.
But can you as a visual effects,
I'd
call him maestro, guru.
I'd like to think so. But if you get good enough, nobody can tell, especially if you're watching it on your phone, which is where most people are getting a lot of their media from now. And the smaller it gets, the harder it is to tell. I mean, there's certain tells I look for, certain things people, if you're not a professional, you might screw up right away, because we're trying to mimic what happens through a camera. Not what happens in real life. We're trying to mimic what happens is if you were to film this. And so there's certain tells where you can tell bad visual effects right away, or something just doesn't feel right in your subconscious. You're not sure what it is, but you're like, I don't quite buy this. But then the better it gets, and the better the artificial intelligence gets that's able to calculate light and really blend things properly. If you look at a lot of these deep fakes, which the best thing about them is they're mainly driven by Nicolas Cage faces, which I think is the greatest thing ever.
Meaning what? Just explain that a bit more.
People have taken Nicolas Cage's face and put it in all sorts of movies using deep fakes, and I'm a big Redditor, so it's like it's all over Reddit all the time. It's
I love it.
But we're getting to that point now where we can change so much that when you're done, it used to be when you're done shooting, now you're in post, there you go. That's what you got. Unless you go do reshoots, that's what you have. Now it's not done yet. I mean, I have a movie right now I'm working on. It's an Italian movie, actually, that the director's doing all this stuff. Like, oh, can I change the sky? Can I change the performance of this? Can I have the actors? Sometimes actors' eye lines are a big thing.
You can make somebody cry? No.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Eye lines are a big thing where we take people's pupils and move them so they're looking at a different character. We've grafted people's lips onto other people's lips so they're saying something different. It's what can happen now. I mean, we're entering a very strange, brave new world because you're not really done. And if you really are a director who's savvy with visual effects or a filmmaker who's savvy with it, you know all the things you can actually change afterwards. And it's good for them because say there's a shot that's just killing you and you can't, to just reshoot for one day, just for that one shot, you'd still have to have a full crew, you'd have to pay the talent. It might cost you a few $100,000. We could solve it for a couple $1,000. So the day, we still do reshoots and stuff, but there's so many things that we can go back and fix. When the director, they get stuff stuck in their craw and they're like, oh, we can go fix that. And so as an insurance policy, as well as a creative partner, which is the two sort of avenues we're down. We're a creative partner helping design scenes and storytelling visually, but then we're also this insurance policy, just helping to polish and improve the film as it's in post.
We actually want to have a weekly or monthly conversation with Chris LeDoux telling us what to watch, but what to look for in what we watch. Chris LeDoux, thank you very much for joining us on Georgia Hollywood Review TV. It has been a pleasure.
We can't stop, no, we can't stop the sky from